right, it is Thursday, October 10th. We got a tinge of fall is in the air. The town is feeling good because the Commandos are getting it done. Big week of football coming up. For that and a whole lot more, here's Riggo.
Todd, I ain't got much for you today, so it's Riggo out.
Good show.
Good show. One of the best.
Close as soon as we open.
You just went Ron Burgundy.
There you go. A couple things. One, I had, cataract surgery on Monday. I now can see around corners. I can see through 2 inches of lead, actually. So I'm new and improved. I am the $600 man. Obviously, once upon a time, it was a $6 million man, but I'm 75. The best they could do is $600.
You just got one eye done?
Yeah, just one. Well, they can't do two at once. And the left one is okay. The left one's almost 20/20. But it, too, has a cataract in it, minor. So, and I noticed when I opened my eye on, in other words, when I closed one eye, the right eye is the one I had done. When I opened the right eye, or I closed the left eye, it's like, wow, everything's like got a white tint to it, kind of. It's so bright. And then I'd close the right eye and I look out of my left eye and it's like, it's almost like there's a shade a little bit. Well, that's because of the, the cataract in my left eye, which isn't bad, but at the same time, it'll probably have to be done.
So you can't do the one eye because you have to see binocularly with both eyes.
Well, what they do as far as I know about this, I should know something about it. I just had it done. But our lens, and I think muscles control that. So therefore, when we're born, and you normally see, if I look down here, I can read because the muscles change the lens so that it'll accommodate close in vision, right? Near vision. And then when I look out and want to see, a bird that's 200 yards up in a tree or whatever it may be, once again, the lens changes and it changes thickness, and now all of a sudden I can see that in perfect clarity. That's 20/20 vision. So what they do now is there's several different lenses they can put into your. I wasn't a candidate for some of the others, like a trifocal. I wasn't a candidate for that, but they just put in one which is like for distance. But I got to tell you, I can read with the new eye. So it's kind of like, well, okay, if you say so. But some people do the monovision, right? They'll let's just say the next lens I get here, I could get one dropped in for reading. So then I would have monovision as opposed to what you said, binocular vision.
Right.
I like to be able to see distance, and particularly like driving and all that stuff.
So what you're saying is, this was all done in advance in preparation for Chongo. So you won't be able to see Chongo out.
I hate to say this, Todd. You are correct. In fact, I had the surgery moved up. Originally, it was scheduled for late November, and the doctor said, well, yeah, you could, but, more than likely, you're not going to be near, an ophthalmologist out there where you are. And I said, check on that. So, in other words, if you had any problem, got an infection or whatever, it wouldn't be wise, because it was scheduled late November, and I'm going to be, I'll probably be out hunting probably early December. Not enough time. So, anyway, we moved the surgery up, and you're right. It was all about Chongo.
I think Chongo
That's very
called.
good. It's very prescient on your part.
Yeah, thank you. I think Chongo called the doc, and he said, Doc, I'm sorry, but we got to even this thing up a bit. The guy comes out here every year on his sojourn. I'm actually messing around with him at this stage.
He could.
Help a brother out.
Yeah. Well, wait a second. I don't know how that works out. I mean, listen, if you're a shitty shot, you're a shitty shot. There's not much you can do. I used to not be. I remember years ago in Africa. Remember, there was about 175 yards, a warthog trotting along through the brush, out of the brush, through the brush, out of the brush. Boom. Warthog down. Warthog down.
One shot Riggo.
It was, yeah. And I'm actually glad. I think I had one miss over there or something like that. But offhand at about 125 yards on an Impala. Although I will say, a good shooter would, they get up, they get their target, they squeeze the gun, boom, it's over with. I'm like this. Like maybe 10 seconds I'm focusing.
Dialing them in.
It wasn't good. But I did make the shot.
There you go.
All right, we'll get away from Chongo for a second. Listen, Hurricane Milton. This reminds me a little bit of that, which I'm going to guess you probably haven't seen the Ice Age franchises. They're animated.
No.
Ray Romano, he plays Manny, which is a woolly mammoth. Dennis Leary plays Diego, a saber-toothed tiger, and John Leguizamo is a sloth. They come onto this island, however they get there, and they run into Buck, who I've yet to identify exactly what Buck is. I'm not sure. But Buck tells them all about Rudy and Ray Romano, who...
He's got a great voice, man. It's just got that distinct voice.
Ray Romano goes, oh, because he tells him his name's Rudy, and Ray Romano goes, he says, oh, I thought it was something maybe intimidating, like Sheldon or Tim. So where I'm going with that is Milton... It's supposed to be mega hurricane, right?
They were talking about Category 6. They were inventing a new category for Milty.
To the point, Todd, I watched, and I don't know who it was, and I wouldn't mention her name if I did, but I saw a meteorologist. He was talking, and he couldn't really, and he go, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Who you're talking about? The longtime weatherman down in South Florida who was crying. He was getting through it, but he also was Mr. Climate Change and over the top about all that. We're not getting
so he was acting a little bit because
he was that was kind of some weak sauce. 100%. I saw the same video.
I thought to myself, how often I guess. If you're a meteorologist, and they might be cut from a different bowl of cloth, you know what I'm saying? Just the people that go into meteorology.
Well, of course, because
Sue Palka, I love Sue. She was great,
right?
And she may be an anomaly in the world of meteorologists. I don't know, but anyway, the guy and it's because of this colossal magnitude of. I'll say it again. Milton. It was something like Buzz or Dick or, just name one of the Chicago Bears.
Chainsaw Sam.
Ditka. It was named Ditka.
Yeah, Butkus.
By the way, that gets me into a whole other thing what Elise Marie asked this morning, and I didn't have the answer to it. Years ago, if I'm not mistaken, a hurricane had to be, am I saying that right, hurricane or hurricane? Hurricane? Hurricane. A hurricane used to have to be named after a woman. It was a woman's name. It was not. Somewhere along the line, they changed to men's names. And Lisa Marie asked me, says, how do they pick the name of a hurricane? And I went, that's a great question.
Did you go down the rabbit hole?
No, I just went left.
I thought you were going to have the answer.
No, because I'm leaving it up to our audience to figure it out. Figure it out for yourself. I don't know.
Riggo's homework assignment for our very loyal following out there. Hurricanes. How do they get named? And how come tornadoes don't have names?
That's a great question. One, probably on the tornado, there are so many, they're isolated. In other words, they hit, they miss, they're gone. The tornado's a quick hit.
Hurricane develops.
Exactly. In other words, you watch it coming across. It's a tropical storm, and everybody's watching a tropical storm. And then all of a sudden, somebody bumps it up to a hurricane. And then all of a sudden, somebody bumps it up to a Class 2. Then it's a Category 3. Then it's a 4.
Then you're crying on TV because it's a 6.
Which gets me to another point, which the news coverage was incessant. You're seeing everybody standing there, and these are, obviously news people that are down there. A lot of them, have regular, their anchors and all this stuff in different places. I don't quite understand the overwhelming coverage. You could maybe help me with this. Although I'm a journalism major, I should know the answer. But had I went to class, I might know the answer. But I've always wondered why we have a preoccupation with disaster, it seems like. I'm wondering, why do we really want to watch? It's almost somebody else's hardship. It's kind of like NASCAR racing.
Yes.
There's some people, let's be honest about NASCAR, not saying nothing bad about NASCAR. Of course, it might sound like I am. But you go someplace, you sit down, and for 3 hours or 2.5, 3 hours, you watch cars go around and around and around and around. I don't know, Todd. It's an acquired taste, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
Yeah,
But my point, the point I'm making here, though, is that are a lot of those fans there with that morbid curiosity about, I wonder if there could be like a 10-car
That's
pilot.
the thrill and the excitement of it all, right?
And maybe that's exactly it. You don't know at any second when cars are going 200 miles an hour and they're like 3 inches off of each, distance between them. That so you can appreciate the skill and the courage that it takes to do that for a living. But this is not the same because that's a man-made event. We can't control, the weather. We can't control, although I guess we're contributing to bad weather, I guess. But I'm trying to think, 10, 15,000 years ago, I think it was not much longer than that, there was an ice age. I think there's a chance there might be another ice age. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm anything but a meteorologist or a geologist and all that stuff. But for me, it just seems like there's so much coverage, and all you see is people, you see the wind blowing, and it's at night and the waves, but you don't. I don't know. It's like it's a marvel to see. Like, I don't know if you recall back when Mount St. Helens finally went.
Sure.
It is it is an event, but I sometimes wonder at other people's expense when you're looking at, I don't know. It just, to me, I guess you got to know it, but you don't. It's kind of a weird place to be.
It's tragedy TV is what it is.
Yes,
and
exactly.
sadly, listen, that's been fact for years. The local newscasts, if it bleeds, it leads, and that's just fact. And for any disaster, and something that could have been at the scales, and thank God. This thing, and while there's a lot of people suffering in South Florida right now, and we acknowledge that it's terrible. We want everybody to
Milton
help
turned
out
out to be a poop fart.
Yeah, and but still a tragedy on a lot of levels because it wasn't this epic 5 or whatever. But it's terrible. It's
Is that the top rating, by the way?
5
Category 5.
5.
It don't go.
No, and that's why they say we may have to invent a new category, and then this guy's weeping.
But it was huge.
But the point being is. Yeah, this is where the networks, and listen, there's a safety factor for local news people to take care of your local communities and populations.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's what they're supposed to be there for.
Information is to, and particularly this is particularly handy during tornadoes because, like I say, you get the conditions when they say a tornado watch, which means the conditions are possible that could develop a tornado as opposed to a tornado warning, which, if I'm not mistaken, means a tornado has been sighted, and whether it's on the ground or not, I don't know. But obviously, that's information. But this is a little bit different because this is a long, ongoing, slow process. A hurricane develops strength. It's it's a tropical storm. Then it finally makes land. I guess when it makes land, that's when it becomes a hurricane. I'm a little bit fuzzy on that. It could be a hurricane out over water.
That's based on the wind, and that's based on the wind. The barometric pressure and all the stuff that comes with it. When it gets to that certain level, that's when the category kicks in. Is it a hurricane, tropical storm? And that's just based on the definition of
I got you.
Your wind speed and all that.
But anyway, I was thinking when I think it was the same guy who was in tears was talking about how the millibars of pressure had dropped. Was it 58? Millibars? I don't know what
basically record readings that they had never seen before. And when you saw it,
so I guess there's no. Because if you go to the bottom of the ocean, it's not air pressure, this is water pressure, but, it's the pressure down there. Well, that's what collapsed that submersible around the Titanic about 6 to 8 months ago.
Yeah.
The pressure is so intense. Well, the same thing is true. The higher up you go, the less the air pressure is, right?
Right.
And that's when you get up. That's why they got to give you oxygen at 30,000 feet.
Well, it's hurricane season, and hopefully that's the last of it for a while because these last couple of storms have been even coming in. Even coming in at 2 or 3, and what's happening?
This is like back-to-back homers.
Oh, it's just bloody awful. So thoughts, prayers, and everything with the folks that are impacted by this.
And I can't help but believing, without Helene having come through there about 10 days prior,
right,
that you had basically, they said, Tampa is a ghost town. People packed it up and got the hell out of there. I think it was the devastation that Helene did, and everybody, it's kind of like a wake-up call. If there hadn't been a pre-hurricane, like I said, 10 days before this, I got a feeling people would have went, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of roll the dice here.
Yeah, I've always stayed here.
But seeing what people, then again, maybe I'm answering my own question. Having seen what had happened, that gives you like a heads up to this could happen to you. Don't kid yourself. Get the hell out of here.
That's right. All right, John, here we find ourselves in the first quarter of the NFL season is in the books. We have been amazingly and pleasantly surprised of the transformation that's gone out in Ashburn and the success that it's led to on the field for a team that won 4 games last year, 4-13. They sit atop the NFC East at 4-1 through 5 games and have an incredible game, an incredible matchup coming on this Sunday, 1 o'clock. You got the A-team. I believe it's Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. And with that and the latest, still probably the last truth teller in sports in this town, truth to power, tells it like it is, our guy, Thom Loverro.
Hey, Tom, welcome to the show. And I couldn't agree more with Tom. You've been telling it like
I'm
it
Todd.
is.
He's Tom.
I mean, who am I thinking of? Tom. Anyway, forget about it. What I was going to say is my first question to you is because you had renamed FedEx to what was it? Something.
Ghost Town Field.
Ghost Town Field, exactly. I'm just wondering, because now it's got a new name, which is what, Northwest Stadium or something like
Northwest.
this? Have you
Yes.
got a new name for it now, or is it still Ghost Town Field to you?
Well, actually, I flirted for a bit with Duct Tape Field because
Well, there you go.
Well
That-
played.
I think
Well
that,
played.
and you know what? I don't think the new owners will argue with you.
No, but I think they've taken the duct tape off. We do know that because they've made a lot of investment just to
yeah,
get
they
it up
did.
to
So
code.
I'm giving the new owners the benefit of the doubt, and if it's Northwest Stadium, then that's what I'm calling it from now on, Northwest Stadium, until they prove otherwise.
Well, until
And
the
I was
plumbing
there
goes
last
bad.
Sunday. I was there on Sunday for the game, and it was probably the first home field advantage this team has had in quite a long time.
What were the? I guess the fact the Browns aren't that far away. What was the percentage of fans? Do you think was it overwhelmingly Washington fans there? Do you think? Because in the past, Philly comes to town, it's all green. Dallas, it's all blue. Giants, it's all blue. Pittsburgh, it's all black or orange, whatever yellow, whatever it is. What would you take with the crowd? Like you said, there was an advantage. So there must have been at least more than 50% Washington fans.
Oh, I'd say it was at least 75 or 80%.
Yeah.
You had the visiting side that had the Browns fans over there. And, I've always been surprised at some of the fan bases that have traveled well. Like, I remember being shocked at how many Miami Dolphin fans would be in the stands at the stadium when Dolphins would come north to play Washington. But it was a strong showing. It was a beautiful day. Great day for football. Your team is 3-1. You've got this star rookie quarterback who hasn't broken your heart yet. I can understand why they had a good crowd. Now they didn't sell it out. Their attendance was 59,000 and maybe about 4,000 short of a sellout. But I think that's going to be a measure of how much damage this franchise has gone through for 2 decades. Because some people may have checked out permanently. So we don't know that. But the crowd that was there was very vocal, Washington, and very enthusiastic. They gave the team a standing ovation when they came off the field at halftime. I can't remember the last time that happened.
I don't even remember that happening when I played. But they did have some pretty raucous crowds, I'll say that. After all, it's just basically what you said. It's kind of the same thing. After 20 some years
24, right?
of just hopelessness, can a fan switch it on and off? I'm guessing the boomers, the people that were older fans back when RFK was up and running and Super Bowls were being won. I agree with you. I think those fans have left on the westbound. They're not going to be a part of this. I think also to that I think the teams. Well, I think the whole NFL is catering to a different demographic, perhaps certainly a younger demographic, but in a weird sort of way, it's kind of like we've seen this before about 10 years ago. They traded away a bunch of things to get a first-round draft pick for a quarterback, and it looked. In other words, my point is, it looks great right now. And you mentioned that right now. I think in your wheelhouse is the same thing. So far, so good, but that all fell apart, towards, I don't know, the end of the season was the next year. I can't remember, but it was certainly they had the rookie quarterback sensation, and they do have it now. It's just like, is it going to stay? And I think Todd, I'll answer for Todd, that he thinks that this guy's good. Who would have known, though, the other guy? I don't know.
I think this is a way different feel. And because of ownership, because of management, and for the guys that they have brought in to build and assemble this team, this feels dramatically different to me, Tom.
I think you're right. I think you don't have the aura of self-destruction that used to hang over this franchise in the form of Dan Snyder, the owner. And while the feeling is similar, John, I think you're right, and the feeling is similar as to what's going on. I think this quarterback is a lot farther along in his NFL, in his ability to play in the NFL than RG3 was. I think he's a much more accomplished passer. This kid played in over 50, Division One NCAA football games. So he comes in with quite a lot of experience. And I just think that we're talking about right now a different player, even if the feeling is the same.
Yeah, he seems to be more mature, more poised at this stage of his career. And to get, it's not me that we saw before, right? And
we've seen that a couple of times.
Yeah, we've seen that. And also facilitated by the previous owner who wanted his show ponies. And you could see the resentment in the locker room. He did it with Clinton Portis, Santana Moss, RG3, Sean Taylor, whatever. He always had his guys. We saw it live and up close. This feels way different to me, and how the defense is starting to coalesce. To me, that's still their biggest issue looking forward, because the offense is really running the ball, passing the ball, making good decisions. The defensive effort against the Browns are terrible, by the way. They are bloody awful. But that's why we're anxious to see this game here on Sunday against the big boys.
I was going to say, Tom, as far as, to me, it's like, look for the father in the locker room. When you see the dad in the locker room, bad sign. And I think to Todd, what Todd's saying, you see a guy that has, it would appear, that has the maturity. And that's just everything Todd said with the Pat, and that we got to give to ownership. They know enough not to go down and start playing favorites and doing. At this point, it would appear that way, but to me, the maturity, he's got the athletic ability.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be said for the maturity to be able to handle everything that goes along with playing that position in the NFL. Well, any position for that matter, but that position in particular.
And drafted to be the savior, right? Because we haven't had a quarterback in forever and a day. So the pressure that comes with that, I mean, how he is handling and how he's comporting himself is refreshing and stunning.
Look, when he meets with the press once a week, the last time he met, last week when he met with the media, it was the week after he won NFL, NFC Player of the Week, NFC Rookie of the Month. I mean, there were accolades coming his way. And the reporters were asking him questions like, how do you feel about this? What's it make you feel like? And he didn't bite, not once, on any of those questions. His answers, and he never wavered, were, I'm just a rookie in this league. I've got a lot to learn. The team is more important than any of this. And he stuck to that. And I was impressed with that.
Yeah.
That he didn't even flinch for a moment and say, yeah, it's pretty exciting to win all this stuff. Here's what we don't know. In the off season, will he choose an appearance on Family Feud over an OTA? That's what we don't know.
I mean, it is the Family Feud, Tom.
I mean, because that's what their last number one hotshot did, Chase Young. So we don't know how that's going to happen, because he's going to be a megastar if this keeps up. And there will be lots of demands on his time away from football.
I think you can make the argument that the only thing standing between him and greatness is himself. And I say that in the way that an injury, of course, but
yes.
If he doesn't mess himself up, like some of the other guys in the past have done, like they say, it's unlimited possibly what he can accomplish.
But that gets back to meddlesome ownership and guys that don't get the big picture, which I think we're seeing, again, based on Dan Quinn. And I told you before, their coaching staff and their management is a who's who. You've got more former head coaches that are assistant coaches and helping out. And from Cliff Kingsbury and how he is managing and what he is doing for this kid is unbelievable. Tom, what do you through 5 games here, what are you seeing as their biggest weakness and is something that is probably the most concerning for them as a team right now?
Before you answer that, though, what did you think about the team going into the season? What were you expecting out of them?
Well, I wasn't expecting this, certainly, and I wasn't expecting much, because I thought, there was so much turnover on the roster between, draftees and free agents. They had 30 new players on the roster. And I thought, I just generally in all walks of life, when you take that many different people and throw them together quickly, it takes time to come together as a team. Same with the coaching staff, a whole new coaching staff. I just thought there would be a period of adjustment before they would actually gel. Given the fact that preseason isn't preseason anymore, I thought they would struggle. I thought they might win 6 or 7 games this year. And I thought they would show signs that they were heading in the right direction. Well, I didn't see them leaving that in the dust and becoming a playoff contender, after 5 games. So I didn't have high expectations going in.
I wouldn't have thought. Yeah, I think most people were of that.
Yeah, and I think anybody saying differently, you're not being truthful, because everything you just said, Tom, the mix of all these different components coming together, which again is a credit to Dan Quinn and how he's able to get everybody to coalesce. They all seem to be, especially on the leadership on the defensive side of ball, that from Bobby Wagner and the other linebacker whose name is escaping me at the moment, who's making all kinds of plays.
Frankie Louvu.
Yes. And these are respected vets. And that, to me, is what I'm starting to see more excitement on the defensive side of the ball, because the offense has been playing so well. I mean, out of their minds, leading the league in scoring and, third down conversions, and they're running the ball. And then you got this kid doing it all. So it's coming together. And you and I talked about this, John. This Ravens game, I'm actually shocked the line is as big as it is. It's Baltimore minus 6.5. And there's a lot of people going on the Commander side, and this is a very big deal. I think you're going to get a real good test of where this team is, and then after that, I mean, Tom, look at the schedule. You got Chicago, Carolina, the New York Giants. Halfway through the season, they could be 8-2, 9-1. I mean, the stars are kind of aligning up for them without getting too far in front of our skis here. That's why I think this game is humongously important.
Well, I think it's more important if they win than if they lose. In other words, if they win, we're talking about a team that's a Super Bowl contender at that point.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens are considered the best team in the league, and then you just went to their stadium and beat them. If they lose, and depending how they lose, but if they lose, well, you lost to the best team in the league. You're still 4-2, about to play the Carolina Panthers. You're still on track for a playoff appearance, which is far better than anyone really expected. So I think the stakes for losing are not as bad. If this is possible, then the stakes would be for winning.
Yeah, I agree with that. The thing that's always in the back of your mind, at least in the back of my mind, and once again, I think it gets into 24 years of futility, that you keep
we don't want to believe. We still think Lucy's going to hold the ball for Charlie Brown this year. This is finally going to be the year I'm going to hold it for you. But I think she's going to hold it this year.
Well, exactly. So in the back, I'm kind of waiting for, this is like, it's like that old in the movie, it's quiet. Yeah, it's too quiet. It's like something doesn't feel right. It's at 24 years. What do you expect?
John's refusing to lead off of first base anymore.
Exactly.
Nope, not doing it.
Nope, I ain't getting picked off again.
Well, you ever see videos? Sometimes they have videos when they're trying to get money from you from the SPCA of maybe a dog or a dog that has been abused and won't come out of its cage to even eat because it's too scared. That's what we're talking about here.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about people that maybe are just afraid to even eat the milk bone because they think it's poisoned or something like that.
Well, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. And the last thing, Tom, through 5 games, and John's notorious for this, he's like, previous performance from a year or two ago is just that, especially with free agencies. The teams who were supposed to be dominant and great this year, a lot of them aren't. Buffalo's got problems. San Francisco, you're not
Dallas
sure what's
isn't who they're
going on.
supposed to be,
Dallas, they're not who they thought they were, who they always think they are.
Well, that's good.
I mean, other than Kansas City and Baltimore, the Minnesota Vikings have been shocking. Nobody saw that coming. So that's why the Commanders, you can actually say and believe with what Tom's saying here that if they beat Baltimore, this is scary.
I have to agree. I mean, but it seems so odd saying that so early in the season, doesn't it?
Go wash your mouth out, Riggins.
I guess I have to. Maybe more of my elixir here.
You know, I give Adam Peters a lot of credit for assembling this roster, the new general manager.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of skeptics, including me. You know, it seems like I compared it to in a column I got running tomorrow in the Washington Times. It seems like they did all their shopping in the offseason at Costco. You know, they got lots of bargains. They got lots of free agents. But, you know, I went back and looked, and except for Bobby Wagner, who the free agents they got, there's one Pro Bowl appearance among all of them. So it's not like they spent a lot of money on free agents. They got
Big names, right?
What I thought were a lot of spare parts, you know, in terms. And so I didn't have high expectations for his roster. And I was really surprised when the teams cut players that the Commanders didn't go after any of those players. They really didn't. You know, I think they signed Noah Brown and linebacker Nick Bellore, and that's it. And Adam Peters, I remember him standing at a press conference saying, "We like who we've got on this roster." He knew, and he was right.
Yeah, the other thing you got to give him credit for is the coaches they hired. I mean, you know, it goes hand in hand. I think, you know, Kingsbury is that guy that actually, I think, will get Daniels to the level, you know, really get the most out of him. I think he, you know, obviously they're doing. I mean, when was the last time you saw this team score so many points? That's unheard of.
They're leading the league.
They're leading the league in scoring. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, with a balanced offense. They're running the ball. They're passing the ball.
But that has that has a lot to do with the quarterback, because I think teams. I mean, he also is one of the leading rushers at the same time, and I think, because it reminds me of 10 years ago when you had Griffin here, that it certainly, you know, I think I can't remember the running back's name back then. You guys would.
Alfred Morris.
Yeah, Alfred Morris. He, you know, ran for 1,500 yards or 1,600.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it was obvious because they were more scared of Griffin than they were. And I think that a little bit that's going on right now. But you know what? It is what it is, because if you're leaving that open and you're taking advantage of it, if you're a defense, you got a problem with this team, offensively speaking.
Yeah. Tom, you going to the game on Sunday?
I'll be there. I'll be there in the press box.
Outstanding. Well, we'll check back in with you. Appreciate you taking the time as always, and let's just soak in the wonderfulness of it all. Let's enjoy something that we haven't been able to do in quite some time.
Yeah, and if things head south, Tom, we'll talk about your beer can collection the next time you come on.
Always a pleasure to come on with you guys.
Thank you, Tom.
You're speaking truth to power, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly what he does.
He's the man.
And he has to be admired for that.
That's the gold
It's not an
standard
easy
right there,
job.
what journalists are supposed to do. So anyways, lost another, just a tremendous person and one hell of a football player. And I know you know Pat Fischer.
Yep.
Pat Fischer pretty well.
You know, when I was a kid, the only station I tell this maybe ad nauseum, but we only got CBS. And as far as football went, you know, and the AFC was on NBC way back when. So we would get, and the only team that we would get Sunday, and I don't know how that, I guess you had to stay in your region, was the St. Louis Cardinals.
Right.
That was all we got to see. John David Crow and Billy Gambrell and Bobby Joe Conrad and Pat Fischer, Larry Wilson. So I knew all these guys. And I remember as a kid, when I say a kid, I was probably getting close to high school, could have been in high school.
Teenager.
But yeah, Pat Fischer was playing for the Cardinals, and I always remembered that because he was such a tenacious player. And then, you know, I think he played for them for 6-7 years, something like that, and then was traded to Washington. And I think Pat played at least 16, maybe 17 years at cornerback. And to me, I mean, I've always felt like this guy's a Hall of Fame. They've got something out there called the Hall of Very Good. Have you heard of that?
No.
You never heard of that?
No.
There is. There's something called the Hall of Very Good, and I'm thinking first of all, get rid of that. That to me is an insult.
That's offensive.
Once again, it's like what we talked about the other day. Back when you was a kid, you'd have the All-State team, then you'd have the second team, and then you had honorable mention. The Hall of Very Good is an honorable mention, and you just soon not have your name mentioned if you're in the Hall. But this guy was and let me say this, and I know we got a little clip here of film, and it might be exactly what I'm referring to. He understood mechanics and physics instinctively. As a guy that was, Pat was, I suppose, about 100, he's 180 pounds wringing wet.
No.
Yeah.
The videotape is going to tell you, and for the boys and girls out there, the younger folks that don't know or didn't get a chance to see Pat Fischer, this was a little guy by NFL standards. He'd be tiny today. But Malcolm Forbes is about the same, but Malcolm Forbes is long and super thin. Pat's compact, but Pat used to knock the hell out of people. He punished. I mean, he kind of like invented the bump and run.
Oh, he'd beat you to death. I mean, in other words, I question now with his technique, could he play today? Because that was back when it was football. When I call it football, I'm kind of getting a little grizzled.
Football playoffs.
Yeah. But that was his technique. I mean, that he was a very physical cornerback, which I think probably a lot of receivers is like, oh God,
it's going to be a long day when Pat's lining up. And taking on Harold Carmichael at 6'7".
You knew what
battles?
you were getting into. Well, I remember one specific play in New York in 1972, and the Washington was playing up in Shea Stadium, and I remember bouncing something outside, and it was just me and Pat Fischer.
You're in this. I think that plays in this video.
And this is where I talk about his ability. He actually would have been like an instructor, the guy that teaches the SEAL Team 6 what they're supposed to
takedown.
He'd been there, done that so much. And back in those days, everybody, I mean, the technique and the fundamentals were drilled into you. There's nothing like that anymore. No. He was an old school football player. He had great fundamentals, and then I think he had this just preternatural ability to understand how big you were and basically what part of the body he wanted on you to get you on the ground.
Well, let's get into it, because this videotape explains a lot of what we're talking about, and you can see the greatness of the one and only Pat Fischer. Let's go to the videotape.
Thank you, Warner.
Pat Fischer stood 5 foot 9 inches tall and weighed 165 pounds, and was as good an acorn as you could find at a time when NFL teams were looking for oaks.
Those are playing on grass.
And he's picking off Sonny.
Artificial turf
the Cardinals
hadn't been
drafted
invented.
him out of Nebraska
I don't know
in
what Sonny was thinking on
1961.
that one.
And after a brief tryout as a receiver, number 37 became their left cornerback, a position
I believe
he
him and
owned for
McDowell
7
played on the
years.
same Nebraska team.
Wow.
Oh my God! Returned it for a touchdown.
He was a small but angry tornado that whirled out and whacked anyone who approached his funnel.
He had perfect form. He had great form, and I think his height helped him, because he was able to get down there and get down below you. Instead of hitting your chest, he hit down where you could hit and lift.
Fischer
And that's
reduced the art of
unusual,
tackling
because most people
to a
don't want to
simple
stick their
matter
head
of
in.
angles and
Now this
leverage.
is Sayers
Stay
right
low,
here.
keep my head up when I
The
make
great Gale
contact,
Sayers.
lift, and take
Look
at
at
least
this.
one of his legs away from him.
Puts him on his head.
If I can get him off the ground with one leg, I'm going to win the war. Because now he doesn't have any power. What he has to have is both legs driving in order for him to run over me.
Traded to the Redskins in 1975, few players ran over number 37. But even in Washington, his skirmishes with backs and receivers were part of a 17-year battle for respect.
Hit him low.
Pat couldn't have been 5'9", 170 at tops. That's what if they wrapped him up in a lot of tape.
And I was 6'5" and a little bit more, and Coach Lombardi used to always say, well, this is like taking candy from a baby.
Pat Fischer shows that size and speed is not necessarily the #1 requisite for a football player. Never missed a practice, never missed a game, played 110%. He was as tough as nails, loved the game, tremendous competitor.
Fischer played the corner with his head first and his body second. This enabled him to anticipate a receiver's every move.
If you can remember back in those days, they played a lot of bump and run, man-to-man defense, and he'd be on you like your underwear. No matter, he was like a fly. You could never get rid of him. You whack him and you think you're open, and there he is. And when you did catch a ball in his area, he let you know. He would nail you. He would take on fullbacks, halfbacks.
Yeah,
guard pulling
true.
out. He'd dip underneath him.
No, that's not.
Because Pat Fischer
he
attacked
got right
much
up out of his
larger
offensive
players
guard
with
that
such
he gets and
relish.
takes out the interference.
It's surprising that he is
Here
a
it is.
soft-spoken, scholarly
that's the play I was
who
thinking
appears
of.
more
Look
at
at
home
this.
in the classroom than on the football field.
I'm
Most
embarrassed.
important is to avoid the fear.
I always remember that play.
Once you win that war, that's the
Avoid the
mental
fear.
thing. That it's not going to hurt. And that big guy, you can win the war. It's kind of exciting to do it. If pain isn't going to be a part of it, only embarrassment is left if I fail
I think
to
that's
make the
Leroy
contact
Brown,
and
if
get
I'm
him
not
down.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame.
You have to be a hitter. You have to run through people. Now, what makes you a good football player is how often you do
Zonka?
that. If you do it every
Look
play,
how
you're
low
going to be
he's
a great
getting.
football player.
Yeah, that's what I said. He understood leverage.
Crab. He hit you with all fours, legs, arms, everything. And without exception, he hurt you every time he tackled you.
You'd catch a high pass from him, and he'd jump on your back and get his fingers in your eyes and claw you to death.
That first game was a pretty good experience for me because, you know, I got out there and he started talking to me, and he intimidated me. Let me break my leg, this, that.
5'9", 165.
He was probably
Well, you see,
the one
he came
guy
across
that
as
I've ever
crazy,
played
no
against
doubt,
in
on the
professional
field.
football
Got
where-
the old eye
And
gown.
I don't
came
care
off
how
the line
big
of
you are. It's
scrimmage.
like a Wolverine
You
and
had
a
to know
brown
where he
bear.
was at.
Brown bear's going to go, that Wolverine's crazy.
Fischer
We're
was
good.
fearless and tenacious. Many players have these qualities. But few could shape them
Oh,
into
yeah,
such
the
a
good old
frightening
days.
and unrelenting force.
Joe, you shouldn't have thrown that one.
A lot of forearms.
Yeah, he didn't.
Shut up, Mel Gray.
He beat on, agitated, outwitted, and intimidated receivers.
Yeah, and that's what's his name,
He was a
Gene
pepper
Washington,
in the
I think.
Redskins' team.
Oh, was that on Pat?
Distraction is the key to the.
What do they call the penalty? I guess pass
Make him think
interference.
about
Maybe
you.
I didn't see
He kind of hit him out of bounds.
And realize
And Pat's
that if they
ready
do
to
catch
go.
the ball,
He's ready to go.
they're going to have to pay the penalty for it. And over a period of time, the war will be won by the guy that's more aggressive.
Fischer's most famous duels
I can't
were
argue
fought
that
with the
point.
Eagles'
Harold
Harold Carmichael,
Carmichael.
number 17, and Oak, who outsized the Acorn by 11 inches and 50 pounds.
The battles they had.
They did. They were classy.
Go through the receiver to the ball. And in that case, with Harold Carmichael, it was always proved to be a valuable instrument. Go through him to the ball. Go through him to the ball. If you want to run inside, you may catch it, and you may get the first down. But I'm going to have to hit you. I'm going to have to punish you for doing it. That's the rule.
And towards the end of the game, it's in the back of your mind.
Right.
Fischer is out here somewhere. I mean, that was his
You're
game.
going to hit me. I'm going to have to punish you.
Few could deny their admiration for this toy terrier who kept nipping at their
Fischer
heels.
was like me. Oh, he
His
did. He's
peers
going to help
respected
Carmichael
Fischer for
up.
his
I can't
spirit and
believe that.
spunk.
Patrick.
For they realized that few players had mined the ore of their talent so completely.
Pat Fischer was not that fast, not that big, but he had a heart. Loved the game, smart football player. Should be an all-pro, should be in the Hall of Fame someday.
I agree
Pat
with that.
Fischer packed such intensity into every play, focused his talent with such skill, aged with such grace, that he played more games at cornerback than any player in NFL history.
That's pretty impressive.
What a tribute. What a guy.
Well, wait a second until Darryl Green. I think Darryl might have played more.
But yeah, probably.
I mean, he played 20
probably. Okay, 1 and 1A.
Yeah, but I'm just saying this. You can tell
when this,
the age of the,
when this was produced.
Yes, exactly.
When this was produced. But hell of a career, hell of a life. I know Pat was a big horse guy.
Yeah, he had horses. He used to run, I think, over in, what was it, in West Virginia.
Charlestown?
Charlestown, yeah, he did. Yes, Pat. And the other thing about Pat was he was a lot of fun. He always had a smile on his face, and he was always going for the laugh. And I'm going to tell you something. If you go for the laugh, I'll be an acolyte forever, because life is too short to go around with a long face on. So,
No
Pat,
doubt.
we're going to miss you. And this is this episode of the John Riggins Show. And I'm John Riggins. And so it's El Riggo, and I'm out of here. Todd is too, for that matter.